Oh man, with that being said, what is going on, everybody? If you don't know, now you do know. You're officially tuned in to a very special edition of the Hfwb podcast series. This is your host, Clifton Pope. And with me today, I have a very special gentleman who's become a real great friend of mine in due time. And it's crazy how we actually met. We actually met a few months ago. I want to say it was at an event for the NAACP. It was their Diamond Ball, if I'm not mistaken correctly. But we've grown and we've stayed in contact throughout time. And we've been trying to make this podcast interview happen for quite some time, for like the last 4 or 5 months. So it goes to show you that great things take time, and it's all coming together perfectly. And there's a particular reason why I have this gentleman sitting right next to me on the podcast, because we hear so much, especially for those who live here in Corpus Christi, Texas. We hear so much about the water issue with the desalination and all these other things, but people don't realize how much the water and the wastewater industry play a crucial role, like in public health, environmental protection, and basically just overall urban infrastructure. So we're going to get into this conversation as far as how we can, of course, grow and improve and evolve within all of these things, and at the same time break down opportunities on how you can even dive into a career into it as well, for those who are in high school or in college looking to get a fresh start within the water and the wastewater industry. So who better than to have on the Hfwb podcast series than a good friend of mine? He's actually the Chief Operating Officer of the Corpus Christi Water Department, Mr. Drew Molly. Drew, welcome aboard to the Hfwb podcast series. How are you doing on this Feel Good Friday, my friend?
Clifton, I'm doing great. And I got to tell you, that was an excellent introduction.
Yes.
I couldn't have done it any better than you. This is a real pleasure to be here. And as you just very well indicated, it's taken a little bit of time to connect on a topic that I think all your viewers may not necessarily think about some of the things that we do every day, but they depend on the things that we do every day, such as water, drinking water, wastewater services. Those are all things that frankly, civilization needs to have, and we've been doing it for thousands of years.
Right.
But we're going to talk about what we do every day at Corpus Christi Water, CCW.
Yes.
And, just a little bit of a background on my end. So I moved to Corpus Christi almost 2 years ago.
Right.
My wife's family is from this part of the world. I've been coming down here for 25 years. Love it down here. My wife she grew up on a dairy farm outside of the city. And so she always wanted to move back home. And about 2 years ago, we were lucky to be able to make that happen. So I work for, Corpus Christi Water as the Chief Operating Officer. And, I went to college, back in, probably shouldn't say how long ago, it disclosed my age here, but it was back in the 90s. I was in college. I got an engineering degree, and I am in the water business. So I basically run all the water and wastewater facilities for the city of Corpus Christi.
Right.
And one of the most tremendous things that we do is we're the largest department at the city of Corpus Christi. So we hire nearly 600 employees. We have nearly 600 employees. So we're looking for the next generation of water and wastewater operators. And it's a great career to go into. It really is.
So it's interesting. Like, what made you, Drew, as far as just when you wake up one day and be like, I want to get involved in the water industry. I want to be able to make a difference. I want to be able to make an impact. Like, what sparked that drive and that passion to want to pursue that career, and at the same time be able to influence others to do the same? Like, where does that come from exactly?
So I started out, I really wanted to be somebody that would help I was an environmental guy. I really wanted to make sure that I had went into a career that had an environmental stewardship component to it.
Right.
So my background is actually environmental engineering. And so I went and I did that. And I actually worked in the oil and gas industry for a couple of years. I was a consultant for a number of years. And by happenstance, I landed at the city of Houston, where I became the drinking water director for the city of Houston.
Okay.
And I ended up in that career, and I went from the private sector to the public sector. And what I found really important to me was that, I'm doing something that benefits, all people that live in a city.
Right.
And I'm doing it for reasons, most importantly noted, it's for public health.
Yes.
We're not in the business, Clifton, to make a profit.
No.
That's not what motivates us. We run a business, don't get me wrong, but our business is to make sure that we protect public health. And so a good day for us is a day when we are able to provide the drinking water, the superior drinking water that the city of Corpus Christi and the region depends on. And we're providing the wastewater services so people don't have to worry about these kinds of things.
Yeah.
We know that our customers and your viewers, Clifton, they're busy. They've got lives to live, and they don't necessarily want to have to think about when they turn on their tap that they're going to have safe drinking water.
Yeah.
They don't want to have to worry when they flush the toilet. They don't have to worry about where that goes.
Yeah.
That's our job. And so I find that our job is extremely rewarding.
Yes.
Because we're doing those essentials that frankly some people take for granted. But there is a group of people that I work with, I have the pleasure of working with, who work behind the scenes 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. When some of your viewers are, we're enjoying Christmas holidays, we've got folks that are at these facilities and they're working to make sure that we can enjoy those holidays.
Around the clock service, without a doubt. And most people don't realize, when it comes to water, as far as it being like one of the major 4 elements along with earth, air, and fire, is that water represents connection. It represents connection of self, connection with others, and most importantly, connection with nature. And you kind of touched on all those things, which is why it's important to consider why water is critical to public health within itself. I mean, our whole entire body is literally made up of water, if I'm not mistaken correctly.
Yes.
Our brain, our heart, our organs. Our whole entire planet is literally consumed of water, and it pains me, Drew, whenever I see it being contaminated, as far as like us just throwing plastic away in the ocean. It's like, I was looking into it earlier. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if within the next 5 years, when the water gets so contaminated, you're going to see literally all the plastic and all the bad stuff that's been within the water, like all the oil and everything. It's going to literally rise up, and then you're going to be seeing it firsthand, where it's going to literally be looking like sewage water to a certain degree.
Right.
Based on everything that you're seeing, like within like the whole desalination process and everything that's been going on with that, what do you think we can do to, of course, get back to just having that clean, purified water, to where it's not as contaminated and it's not as infected, to where we can take care of our overall well-being?
Well, Clifton, there's a lot of good stuff right there. And one of the things I think is important for the viewers to note is that, the city of Corpus Christi has done a wonderful job over the last 60, 70 years developing water supplies that are clean and safe and renewable. Unfortunately, what's happened is that the city of Corpus Christi, unfortunately, we are in a day and age right now where there is our entire system is based on surface water.
Yeah.
So surface water comes from lakes and rivers, and lakes and rivers are dependent upon water from rainfall.
Yes.
So 100% of our drinking water comes and is directly dependent upon rainfall. And unfortunately, what's happening now is
in a drought.
We are in a bit of a drought.
Yes.
And so our reservoirs are not getting filled, and that's a problem. And if we don't have safe, clean drinking water and ample quantity of it, people tend not to want to live in a certain part of the region.
Right.
And so you mentioned the word desalination.
Yeah.
And I think what sometimes happens is that's kind of an intimidating word. People hear desalination, they go, "Oh my gosh, doesn't sound good." And they
make you raise your eyebrows a little bit, like, man, I need to look this up. What does this mean exactly? That's how I was when I heard that myself. I'm like, desalination. I'm like thinking, does that have to do with like contamination of water or something?
I never even thought about that, but desalination sounds a little bit like contamination.
Yeah.
I don't like the fact that word sounds scary.
Yeah.
But what I want to make sure that your viewers know about is that we're in the business of public health and safety. And so we would never do something that would jeopardize our public's drinking water, and we would never do something that would jeopardize the environmental impact to the environment. So the project that we're trying to do right now, Clifton, is a project called seawater desalination.
Okay.
And what we're doing is we're doing something that the rest of the world has been doing for decades, which is to say we're taking seawater out of the sea, we're purifying it, and we're putting that same salty water back into where it came from.
Yeah.
So there's some concerns that we're going to impact the environment very adversely by doing that. But frankly, we have a team of scientists and engineers who have looked at this to make sure that we're putting in not too much of that salty water back into the environment to where the environment can handle it. So we feel really good that we have a plant that's going to offer more reliable, drought-proof water to our community. We feel like we have a project that's going to be affordable to the ratepayer, because frankly, Clifton, we all have to be able to afford what we do every day.
Yes.
And so we recognize that. So we feel like this is a really important project that the community needs to have. And we need to make sure that the community understands that this is a project that everybody's going to pay for. Some people say, geez, the residential folks are going to pay for all of it and everybody else is going to benefit, like the industry.
Yeah.
And that couldn't be farther from the truth. Everybody is going to pay what they use, they're going to pay for. And so we're going to do the best we can to make sure we minimize the cost of this project. So the state of Texas, for example, has given us low interest funding.
Oh, wow.
So that's pretty cool. The other thing is the federal government has come in and said, please apply for grant funding, which is essentially a free money. They actually would give us a check that we wouldn't have to pay back.
You got to love how the EPA regulations will help ensure the water quality and the environmental protection, to where they're willing to give you those kind of grants to be able to have the funding to complete all of these projects and stuff. Does that kind of factor into how like all the treatment facilities and, for instance, all the distribution networks can like continue to grow for the better in regards to this project?
Absolutely. And Clifton, one of the things I think is important to note is that one of the reasons why this project isn't really expensive, it's an expensive project. We always like to say the most expensive water is the water that you don't have, because it costs money to go get that water, right?
I love that.
Yeah. So part of the reason this is affordable is because the project site is taking water that we're going to treat from the sea, and it's going to put it right back into the distribution system that's already there. So we're not having to build a lot of pipelines to carry this water to, communities or industry that's outside the city. This is water that's right here for all of Corpus Christians to enjoy, to use, to benefit from. We think that's really important in terms of a new water supply when it's here for the people.
I love that. How do you feel like the public service can basically be impacted by, of course, just the commitment to just making sure like all of this falls into place, as far as just the water industry, how critical it is and everything? How could the public service, for instance, be committed to that?
This is probably the most important aspect of what we are trying to do, especially today, Clifton, as we're talking through this. And one of the things that one of the organizations, it's a nonprofit, and it's called the American Water Works Association. It's the largest nonprofit water organization in the world. And I'm very much involved in that. And one of the programs that we have right now is called SETH. It stands for Science, Engineering, Technology, and Health.
Yes.
And it's a program that we are just now trying to roll into the schools. And we really want to try to encourage young kids, young men and women, to come join our forces at the city. And this program educates young kids in high school, specifically seniors, where we come in, no cost. We come in and we provide a course that allows these young folks to take this course, take a test, and when they pass the test and when they get their high school diploma, they automatically get a D water license.
Oh, wow.
Which allows them to go right into our water plants and be very day one be able to work as an operator. And this may not necessarily be for everybody, but we feel really strongly, we're the largest department at the city of Corpus Christi.
Yes.
And so we've got opportunities to hire folks. And we want, as we're talking about a desalination plant, we're going to need smart folks to come in and help us run this.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things that we've told people that we talk to every day is we think the smartest folks are the people here at the city of Corpus Christi. We don't want an outside operator to come in and run this. We want our people to run these facilities.
We just need to continue to just raise awareness and continue to educate people as far as the importance of just the water conservation and the safety and the sustainability to where we can maintain this clean, purified water within this program. For anyone who's kind of having like their doubts and all this whole entire process, what would you tell that person right now who's listening to this particular episode of the Hfwb podcast series as far as the importance of just the education and the raising awareness on how we can conserve and most importantly, sustain and save our water for generations to come, more so going forward into the future?
Well, Clifton, I think probably the biggest answer to that question is the best way we do this is we start with the next generation that's in school today.
Yeah.
That generation is going to be what's going to make this world a better place.
Right.
So we need to be talking, to the younger folks that are listening out there, folks that, even parents of kids who have kids in school, I feel really strongly that the career that I'm in is very rewarding. And I would like to try to make sure that if there are kids out there that want to go into a water or wastewater career path, this is something that's very rewarding. And I say to the younger generation, I say to that generation, it's important to try to recruit them and try to get them interested. But I would go so far as to say that, even if you're somebody that is a veteran, is somebody that maybe might be looking for another career choice, this could potentially be for you as well. I will tell you that I have friends who weren't ready to go to college when they graduated from high school. Nothing wrong with that. They just didn't have the maturity. They wanted to go out. They wanted to get a paycheck. And I have friends who actually went off and became operators and then went back to college and got engineering and science degrees, which made them, they wanted to go back into the water and wastewater. They went back and they were better because they started in the field, went and got a little college education because for them it made sense, and they came back. And, I'll be the first to tell you, college is not necessarily something that is for everybody. There's skilled trades that right now we got a huge shortage in plumbers. You can go get a plumbing, skilled trade in plumbing and make a great wage.
Yes.
And so, it's just one of those things, everybody's got a different path.
Yeah.
And so we're here to talk today about, one path that may make some sense for some of the viewers that are listening today.
For anyone who is looking to, like, say, for instance, they're fresh out of high school, they're fresh out of college, they went through the process of getting that engineering and that science degree. How can they get involved in the Corpus Christi Water Department right here, right now, based off of having that experience and having those degrees and qualifications to where they can enter into the industry? What would you tell them would be the first step as far as how to get into the industry? And most importantly, what is the most important thing that they should focus on once they do get into the industry?
Well, one of the things I like to say, Clifton, is we're a very diverse department. We have people from all different backgrounds. We have folks who, have high school diplomas. We have folks who have PhDs. Yeah. We have folks who, do various different things. So I would say, to the answer to your question, for the folks who have a very specific educational background, think about what it is that you want to do. We have engineers who look at design drawings and review, water lines and wastewater collection lines, and basically try to help oversee how that infrastructure should be constructed and be built. We have engineers that look at water chemistry and laboratory type environments. So it depends on what kind of background, where people want to go. But I would say, first and foremost, I think what's important to say is that you got to have the passion to want to go into it. Yeah. We're going to spend a lot of time working. You go to the office and you're there for 8 hours. Oh, yeah. Sometimes more. So you got to love what you do.
Yeah, you got to.
And so, my thing is I want to create an environment, Clifton, where people really thrive. It's a diverse, environment where people want to be there. They learn every day. There's recognition. We want to recognize people when they're doing great things because we do a lot of great things every day. It's just so important to me to make sure that the environment that people are going to spend a lot of time in, they feel respected and they feel appreciated. And I think for me, it really makes you feel good when you leave the office and you know the entire city and region, 500,000 people are using something that you provided to them every day.
I love it. I love it. Where do you feel like, in just your own personal opinion, Drew, as far as just where do you feel like the direction of just the water supply, not only just here in the Corpus Christi, Texas, but just all across the world, based on, like, for instance, certain rivers drying up, for example, or just in general, just the overall water supply all around the world, just from your work and your studies and everything you've seen within the water and the wastewater industry, where do you see it heading, for instance, in the next 3 to 5 years, just off of your own personal estimation?
Clifton, I think the answer to that question is, and I think the viewers here probably would agree with us that there is a lot of pressure on the environment today.
Yeah, there is.
We're talking about, the lakes and the rivers, and they're drying up. You just said it. They are. We're talking about other sources of water that we can drink as groundwater.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of people putting straws in the ground, pumping water out. There's not a lot of great water for us out of the ground.
Yeah.
In California, El Paso, there's folks that are figuring out how to basically reuse wastewater effluent. That's something that some people, frankly, in some parts of the world, they drink it. The technology is there because we have smart people that we're hiring to come work. There's smart people that are figuring out how to design that equipment to make it work.
Yeah.
And we can operate it, we can maintain it. So really, this kind of goes back to where we were talking a few minutes ago, which is to say the next available water supply that we feel is affordable, is we can do it environmentally friendly, is seawater desalination. And we live right next to the coast. Our thought is if we could use that resource responsibly, that helps people that live in the coast or inland. Maybe some of the resources that we're using on the lakes and rivers, we can maybe let some of those folks that are closer to those supplies, maybe those folks can use some of those resources that we don't otherwise need because we're using the seawater as a resource.
Now, for everyone who's listening to the Hfwb podcast series, now you see why water is such a very critical part of our lives. I mean, it's critical to our daily lives, as Drew broke down, and it's critical to the health of our overall planet. I mean, Drew said it himself. There's so much wealth of career, of opportunities for those who are dedicated just to making a positive impact. And for anyone who's listening to this particular episode of the Hfwb podcast series, invest in the education aspect of it if you really are passionate about it. Stay informed. Be aware of all these networking associations like Drew alluded to, the American Waterworks Association. That way you can embrace that innovation, and at the same time, you can thrive and excel in this essential field, because we need more individuals, especially part of my generation, which of course me being a millennial and everything, but at the same time, Generation Z, Generation Alpha. We need to keep this train going, because last time I checked, the baby boomers, Generation X, they're getting up there in age and they're not going to be around forever, as so us. So we need to, catch that torch and keep that torch alive and well before it burns out completely. That would be my suggestion to everyone who's listening to this particular episode of the Hfwb podcast series. And at the same time, rewind everything that Drew just said within this whole entire episode. That way we can be informed and we can have this discussion with friends and family members on how we can basically keep the water industry flowing before it really goes to waste, ironically enough. But overall, Drew, we're actually getting to the point of the podcast where I actually ask people a list of questions, everyone who comes on my podcast. That way we can get to know you a little bit more and we can pick your brain a little bit. First question is this, Drew. What is the first thing you do or think of every single day that you wake up every single day?
Well, the first thing I do is, to me, it's important to certainly start the day. I've got 3 kids at the house, and I've got a lovely wife. So the first thing I like to do is I like to wish them a good morning. I certainly like to see my family every day, and it's a great way to start the day. I'm a coffee drinker, so I usually start my day with a little bit of coffee.
Can't go wrong with that.
Do a little bit of reflection. you could almost call it a little bit of self-meditation, just to kind of think about, what is in store for the day. And a lot of it for me is just making sure that in my mind mentally I'm prepared to get into the day. Just saying things to myself, it's going to be a good day. Smile. It's amazing how smiling is a big thing.
Yes, it is.
It's contagious. People see a happy guy, happy lady. People are like, hey, this is going to be a good day. So if you start out the day right, eat a good breakfast, start the day out right, think positive. To me, that's how you get the day going right.
Find ways to just practice gratitude, as far as just being grateful for the big things, the small things, and everything in between. That's the biggest game changer that anybody can make, as far as just starting off their day right. And that's something I like to tell people all the time myself, Drew. So that's very well said. Now, of course, the next question that I have, as far as they say health is wealth, right? So you can't have one without the other, In your personal definition, Drew, what does health and wealth mean to you?
Well, I'll tell you what, wealth is not something that I see in monetary value. What wealth is something that's measured by, frankly, it's measured by health and happiness. And, the old adage that money doesn't buy happiness, it doesn't. And so from my perspective, my health is something I think a lot about. And for me, health comes from being able to put yourself in a place that allows you to be able to sort of rebalance your mental spirit, your spiritual spirit, and your physical spirit. And so for me, what I like to do is I do live out in the country. I'm a runner. So I really try to every day get out and have a little run, a jog. It's my own time. It's the place where I go and nobody can take it away from me. It's my own space, and it's an important part of the day for me. And so,
I love that.
It takes the stress out, gets the heart rate going. Right. You feel connected to the environment because you're outside.
Yes.
I try not to do it on a treadmill, but if I need to, I'll do a treadmill. But I'd rather be out with nature and seeing some things that are enjoyable to see.
I love it. I'm the same exact way. Like, I always try to run in the park right down the street here from my home, or even just go down to, for instance, the Cole Park Pier, where I'm right by, ironically enough, the water. And just while I'm running, take a look at the water. And it just, again, allows me to realize, hey, I'm grateful to live in a city like, for instance, Corpus Christi, Texas, because we're right by the water, for example. So it just gives you those reminders, as far as just, again, like we've been talking about, practicing gratitude and stuff. And at the same time, recognizing the community that we live in. And speaking of community, Drew, what is your personal definition of the word community? What is the first thing that comes to mind when you think of community?
Yeah, when I think of community, I think of the people that we live next to. And, frankly, that's one of the reasons why I think my job is so rewarding.
Right.
Because the job that we do at CCW is for the community.
Right.
We do this.
It's bigger than you at this point.
It's absolutely. It's bigger than any one person.
Yeah, right.
And I always say when I go on to do something else, there's going to be somebody that can do my job in my place and probably do it better than I do.
Right.
And that's okay. That's fine. Yeah. But what I take away from it is this is my chance to serve the community. I'm in public service. I'm here to serve the community. I'm here to do a job. I'm here to run a business. I'm not in the business to make a profit. I'm in the business to not lose revenue, but I'm in the business for public health. Yeah. And my shareholders are not on the New York Stock Exchange. My shareholders are the city of Corpus Christi community.
I love that. As we make a little bit of a transition, we're going to go a little bit deeper, Drew. I like to call this either or, where I ask you which one would you choose out of the other. The first one is this: would you rather choose loyalty or respect?
I would rather choose respect. To me, respect is the ability to have empathy for your fellow human being, and respect is something that certainly is earned over time. And the more you're with somebody and the more you get to know somebody, hopefully the more respect you have for that person.
That's true.
I'm not going to say that loyalty, there's some importance to loyalty. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. You can't have one without the other in a way.
Yeah. And I think like in certain professions, military, it's important to kind of have that chain of command and that loyalty to be able to follow orders, if you will. But, in my frame of thinking, respect is important. And I, you want to have respect for everybody.
Yeah.
And I always like to say, you give everybody respect. It's theirs to lose. You know what I mean? I like to think that I'm going to respect this person. And if they give me a reason not to respect them, then that's on them. That's not on me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like, to add on to what you're saying, it's like, if I respect you and you respect me, we unify and become one, and we could stop like a common threat from taking both of us out. For instance, if it came down to that scenario, just to add to everything you said, and I couldn't agree anymore. My next one is this. Would you rather live in space or live in the ocean?
Ooh. I would probably rather live in the ocean. And I guess the reason for that is I always say, there's folks that want to go off into space and live in the next galaxy. And I'm thinking to myself, God has given us one heck of a nice planet. And, the ocean is not something we've really explored a lot. We don't know a whole lot about what's in the ocean.
No, we haven't even explored. We've only explored like maybe 15 to 20% of the ocean, if I'm not mistaken, correctly.
Absolutely. So my thing is maybe there's parts of the ocean that we don't know much about. Maybe there's some ocean that we could take, that we could utilize to our benefit, that maybe we don't have to go to space. Because frankly, I don't know about you, Clifton, but when I see Mars, I don't really want to live up that way.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions about space, without a doubt. I can definitely attest to that for sure. Would you rather be poor and anonymous, would you rather be poor and famous or anonymous and rich?
Man, I'd almost say neither one.
That's acceptable.
Part of it is for me, the being famous to me is not necessarily something that really, that's not really something for me that's all that important. And being poor, I think, is kind of going back to what we talked about earlier, which is, what does poor really mean?
It's true.
I probably wouldn't want to be poor, but it's not because of the monetary value. A lot of times people think poor is not having money. I would rather not be poor from an intellectual standpoint or poor from a human contact standpoint, right?
I love that.
I would rather be rich, not necessarily from the monetary standpoint, but rather be rich with my relationships with people. And if I don't have the fame, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's like the theme of the Hfwb podcast series, Drew. It's information is the new money. The more informed and more educated you are, you're already rich and wealthy to a certain extent, because you're going to basically create this level of abundance that reflects off of the universe and the energy that it gives you, to where those monetary things just come to you naturally without you even having to try half of the time. Once you have the information, somebody's going to be willing to pay you for that information, and there you go. It just comes abundantly, without a doubt. Would you rather have unlimited tickets, like first class tickets, or would you rather have unlimited free meals at your favorite restaurant?
I don't know. I guess that's a good one. I guess I would say unlimited free tickets for a meal, for my favorite meal. I would say, a lot of times meals are a wonderful thing because you're breaking bread with friends and family. Yeah. So if I'm breaking bread with friends and family, and I've got a meal that I really like, and it's for free, that sounds like a pretty good deal for me.
I would agree with that for sure. Would you rather sing to every song or dance to every song, Drew?
I would rather sing to every song. Part of that is I'm not a very good dancer, and I'm not the best singer. And I don't know, for some reason, singing is both singing and dancing are pretty awesome, but I don't know. To me, it seems like maybe doing the singing would be pretty cool.
It's much more convenient for most people, so I can definitely understand where you're coming from in that. I'm going to paint this scenario for you, Drew. Picture yourself trapped on an island, right? But you had the option to listen to 5 of your favorite music artists. It doesn't matter what genre it is. It could be their whole catalog of music. Who would those 5 music artists be?
Ooh, okay. I would say one of my favorites is Sam Cooke.
Okay.
I grew up in Detroit, so I'm a Motown guy.
Nothing wrong with that.
So I love one of my favorites is Smokey Robinson. You know, I'm a Bob Dylan fan.
Can't go wrong with that.
I like the Rolling Stones. And you know, I guess the last one is just you know, how about if we throw a country artist in there? Waylon Jennings is an old country western guy that I just kind of like his music. So you know, kind of a diverse musical spectrum there. I mean,
there's nothing wrong with being diverse with your music and stuff, Drew, because you can't always stick to like one genre all the time. That's kind of like the equivalent of, say, for instance, if there was only one flavor of ice cream, if it was just vanilla or chocolate, you know, we want to switch it up every now and then with our flavors of ice cream, hence our music as well. So there's nothing wrong with that at all, Drew. Now, speaking of like, you know, food like ice cream and stuff, what would be your favorite go-to meal?
You know, I'll tell you what, I tend to be a guy that likes pizza. I'm a pizza guy.
You can't go wrong with that.
You know, it's to me, it's kind of back to the water. It's simple. You know, a great pizza crust, you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Some great mozzarella cheese, a little bit of tomato sauce, and I put a little basil on it. To me, that's about as good as it gets. So I'm a simple guy when it comes to food. I tend to be more of a plant-based guy. I do tend to eat more as I've gotten older. I don't know. I just tend to eat more plant-based food. I don't eat a lot of meat. I'm a real avid shrimp guy. Love shrimp. So when I moved down here, you know, I moved to the paradise world of great seafood down here. So
I love it. I love it. A lot of people don't notice about you, True. You tend to do a lot of traveling whenever you're not working within the water department of Corpus Christi, Texas. I have to ask you this. Where's the favorite place that you've traveled to thus far? And where's a place you would like to travel to that you haven't been to yet?
You know, I appreciate that question. So I am one of the luckiest guys around because I got to live on virtually every continent in the world. I've been to every continent on the world except for Antarctica. And I will tell you, I probably my favorite place that I get to go to and I've traveled to a lot is a place up in Eastern Canada called Nova Scotia.
Yes, we were talking about that.
Yes. So that is, if you ever get a chance to go up there, call me. I want to make sure you have a wonderful trip. It's one of my favorite places. It's very special to me. The next question you asked is where would I like to go? What's a place I would like to go? So on my bucket list is Botswana, Africa. When I was a kid, my parents, we lived in Saudi Arabia. I took a safari trip to Kenya, one of the best trips I ever made. I'm a huge wildlife guy. You know, if you got to see wildlife in the zoo, you know, I understand that. But when you get to see the wildlife out in the safari, it's top notch. So Botswana would be the place I would absolutely love to go. If I had, you know, the resources to get a trip over there and I had the time, I would do it in a heartbeat.
I love that. Now, you're an extremely busy man, Drew, without a shadow of a doubt. But whenever you're not doing all the things that you're doing within the Corpus Christi Water Department, what are some of like your favorite hobbies that you like to do that many people may not know you like to do?
You know, probably my favorite hobby is I am a guy that likes to be out in the outdoors. So if I'm out, you know, jogging, walking, and it's out, you know, in a park, hiking. Some of my favorite vacations, you know, are where I don't see a lot of people. It's not because I'm not a people person.
You got to take a break from that sometimes just to check on your own well-being.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, I look at it, you know, sometimes the best trips you can make. So I love going into the mountains. I love being outside, outdoors. I love hiking. One of the coolest trips I ever did as a kid was when I was 21. I took a trip to Newfoundland.
Oh, wow!
And we basically had a topo map and a compass, and we had a guy drop us off in a boat on the bottom of a mountain, and we had to hike 4 days with a compass and a topo map back to a headquarters, back to a park ranger station.
Right.
We spent 4 days out in the middle of nowhere. And it was a tough hike. You know, it wasn't easy, but it was one of those trips where you look back on it and you're like, man, I was one with nature for 4 days. And it makes you realize that you are a human. You are part of the earth. Yeah. And Mother Nature is a pretty powerful organization, a pretty powerful force to tend with. She's got a beautiful planet here, Clifton. Yeah. You know, and it's important to respect that.
We have to take care of Mother Earth by all costs, because if we don't take care of Mother Earth is definitely going to take care of itself. We're just temporary visitors on this planet. Yes. I mean, if you look back in history, it's going to find a way to take care of itself and eventually reform itself into the wonderful earth that it is, at least until the end of time. I mean, yes, you can look back in history to basically explain that a little bit more in details. But last question I have for you, Drew, is an interesting one. Say if you had the opportunity to go back in time, right, and talk to yourself 10 years ago, what would you tell yourself? And at the same time, based on your current journey that you're on, where do you see yourself in the next 10 years?
Yeah, I 10 years ago, I probably would have asked myself, you know, am I doing things the right way? Am I making the right choices? Am I doing the right things? Am I, you know, those questions that I think you always have to ask yourself. Am I doing it the right way? Where do I see myself in 10 years? You know, I hope I'm in the same industry that I'm in. I hope I'm doing this. I hope I'm helping others. Yeah. You know, go into this field and benefit our community. And I hope I'm, you know, more of a teacher than anything else. My parents were both school teachers. I grew up in a house where you know, parents were teachers. My father was a school teacher in inner city Detroit. You know, he really loved that. My mother was a teacher, and she still teaches today. My mother's a school teacher. And so, you know, for me, giving back to the community by teaching, by helping, I hope that's what I'm doing in 10 years from now, Clifton.
I love that, Drew. This was such a great conversation, a very informative conversation. For those who are listening to the Hfwb podcast series and want to get in contact with you just to follow your journey, follow everything that's going on with the water industry, the wastewater industry, not only just in Corpus Christi, Texas, but just in general, how can they contact you exactly?
You know, I am happy to have them email me anytime. So my email address is Drew, DREWM, @cctexas.com. You know, I'm always checking emails out. So if anybody wants to email me a question, or you know, if they have if they want to get together and talk about what we're talking about here, Clifton, I'm happy to reach out and meet and talk and email, whatever it takes. You know, one of the things that I want to do is we want to get into the school system. So especially if your viewers out there are looking to help our organization, AWWA, get into the schools to help with this SEF program, I'd especially like to, you know, reach out and hear from the viewers.
I love that. I love that. And this has been such a great conversation, because most people don't realize the importance of like how water plays like an everyday role in our lives. It's a reason why they say water is the most amazing liquid superconductor in nature. And now we had a gentleman who basically works with this on a regular basis break this down on so many levels. So I definitely encourage anyone who's interested in getting involved in not only the water industry, but the wastewater industry. Y'all need to archive and save this episode in particular, because it's going to make a difference, and it's going to make an impact that's going to allow you to grow, evolve, and find ways that you yourself can improve not only the water that you're consuming on a regular basis, but most importantly, how to sustain it and make sure that it's safe for the next generation, and so on and so forth. Drew, I thank you so much for just taking time out of your busy schedule just to enlighten the audience and enlighten everyone on the Hfwb podcast series about the importance of this topic. I definitely learned a lot, and I guarantee you the viewers and the audience is definitely going to learn a thing or two in this conversation for sure. So thank you again, Drew. I'm truly grateful for this.
Clifton, I really appreciate you having me on. It sure was a pleasure. You do a great job. I love the enthusiasm and the way the questions that you asked were actually some questions that it made you think a little bit about what we do every day and why we do it. And so it's a real pleasure and an honor, frankly, to be here on your podcast. And I certainly look forward to being in touch with you.
I appreciate that, Drew. And for anyone who's, of course, listening to this particular episode of the HFWB podcast series, once again, this is your host, Clifton Pope. I encourage everyone to stay healthy, wealthy, and blessed like always. And until next time, peace, love, and positive vibrations.